Hi guys, welcome back to the channel, and today I'm going to show you how you can implement JWT authentication inside a FastAPI. So let's begin. So first of all, we'll install the requirements required for this. So the requirements are simple. First of all, obviously the FastAPI, and then you can also install Uvicon to run the FastAPI on your local system or just run the FastAPI. And then you can also have SQL Alchemy for a test database we're going to create here. And then for encryption and decryption, we can import a library which is called passlib. And in the square brackets, it's bcrypt. So this is the whole library's name. And then we also import Python -JWT. And we'll just install these requirements and let's move forward with the coding part. All right, so the first part is I'm going to make a test database here. So this is going to be a database for something like users because we will use JWT tokens to authenticate and validate the user logins. So let me just create some file name database. And already, okay, I already have database, so I'll just name it something like database2.py, and we'll write the database code here. All right, so the code for database is going to be from SQL Alchemy. We can first of all import the create engine. Then we can also get column, integer, and strings to define our columns. Then moving forward, we can import a declarative base for our database. So for importing the declarative base, we can have from SQL Alchemy dot extension dot declarative import declarative base. Moving forward, we can also import session makers from SQL Alchemy. So that is going to help in making sessions for our database. So that is going to be easier to use in our code. So let's just import session maker from SQL alchemy.orm. And that's it for the requirements. Now let's move forward. And for the URI, I'm going to just set it something like just on my local host. So I'm not going to connect to an online database here, but I'm going to create the DB file on my local system as only here. So the database file is going to be named as users.db. All right, so moving forward, now we can create the engine for our database, and that is going to be engine equals to create engine, and we're going to have the database URL as the first argument. And then also we're going to have some extra arguments inside this, which is going to be connect arguments. And this is going to be equal to something in curly braces, which is equals to check same thread. So this is a dictionary of additional connection arguments. So the check same threads, I'm going to keep it as false right now. So it basically removes the checking of threads. And then moving forward, we can define a session local here. So session local is basically the database session, which will be used to handle all the queries. And for the base, we can have a declarative base object here. So base is equals to declarative base, and that's it. All right. So that is our database file, and now we can move forward to the next file for our project or implementation, and that will be models.py. So in that file, we will define the models for our application. So that is going to be simple for now. We just have a user database, so I'm going to use a table. So I'm just going to declare one class here itself. That is going to be the user class. So let me just first of all import the requirements. So first of all, we're going to have from database two, which is our database file, the database two. From that, we're going to import the base here, and now we're going to import some column integer strings from our SQL Alchemy. So that will be used to define our table inside our database. All right, moving forward, we can define the user class here, which is an extension of the base object or from our database. And that's going to be something like, now I can declare its parameter, something like table name, which is going to be users, and then ID, name, email, hashed password. And we can remove this column, which is disabled. It's okay. So, and for the name, we can also remove the name here. So we'll just keep it simple. So it just have three columns, which are ID, email, and hashed password. So that's going to be our model for our user database, user table inside our database. All right, so let's move forward. Now we're going to define some auth utils so that I'm going to create a file which is authutils.py here, and I'm going to define some functions which will be used to encrypt or decrypt or verify the encryptions of our text. So let's define some authutils here. All right, so I'm going to import the passlib library here, which we installed using pip initially. So from passlib, we're going to import crypt concept first, our first module, and then we can import JWT and JWT error from Jose, which is actually the Python JWT library. And then we can also import something like date time, because date and times will be used to verify the JWT tokens. All right, perfect. So now we can move forward, and now I can define a secret key here, which will be used to encrypt my text messages. So that's going to be something like whatever you like. I just keep it something secret, and then we can select the algorithm. We can define the algorithm variable here. So that is going to be the HS256 algorithm. It is an encryption type. So we're going to use that. HS256. All right, moving forward. Now we can also define our access token expire minutes. So that will be basically the time after which your token will expire once you gain it. So I'll just keep it 30 minutes for now. All right. Moving forward, first of all, I'll define the context here. So this is PWD context. So this is going to be a context object, crypt context object, which will help us encrypt and decrypt our text. So that's going to be a crypt context object with the arguments as schemes, which is equals to bcrypt, and the deprecated is auto. Then we can move forward to define our functions. So first of all, we can define our hash password function here. So hash password function will just simply return PWD contexts hash function, and we'll just pass in our argument, which is password right here. Perfect. Moving forward, we can define another function, which is define verify the hash. So I'm just going to name it something like verify password, and it's going to have plain password and hashed password as both uh, arguments. Moving forward, we can just simply return the pwd context.verify function, which will help us verify both the text using the .verify function. All right, perfect. So we have now verified the password as well. So now we will create a function which will basically create the access tokens for gaining the access to basically to bypassing the authentication or gaining the access to protected routes. So for this, we can have define create access token named function. And for this, I'm just going to pass in a data, which is going to be our dictionary. Then we can pass the expire delta. This is basically the time after which the token expires. And okay, I'll just pass it. This is going to be of the type time delta. And we can pass the default as none for now. All right. So defining the function, we can now declare the variables. So first of all, to encode is basically the data or the password, which is passed as the raw string here. So to encode equals to data dot copy, and then we can set this expiry time here. Just a second. All right. So the expire is going to be datetime dot UTC now plus the expiry delta. So that is basically the time when our token will expire. All right. So after this, we can also define something like to encode dot now we'll update the to encode. So the to encode dot update, and for the expiry parameter, we're going to update it with expire variable. So that will increase its lifespan or update its lifespan to the new expiry date. Now moving forward, now we can simply encode our JWT. So that's going to be encoded JWT, which is going to be JWT dot encode, and in the parameters we can simply pass to encode. comma, secret key, which will be used to run the algorithm, and the algorithm is basically the algorithm which we had declared above. And now we can simply return this encoded JWT. So that's it. That's how you basically use Python's JWT and passlib libraries to hash the password and encrypt and decrypt them as well and verify them as well. All right, perfect. So now we can move forward and now we can start basically building our application. One more thing in this is since we had created the access token, we also need to create a function to decode the access token. So that is going to be something like decode access token. And the argument is going to be token, which is a string. And for this, we're going to put the code inside a try except statement. So that for the try statement, we can have simply payload, which is equals to jwt.decode the token with the secret key and the algorithm. And then it's going to return the payload here. And if it does not work here somehow, so we're just going to throw the JWT error here. Perfect. So that's our auth-utils file. Now we can start building the main app file for our FastAPI. So I'll just name it something like jwt.ui and let's start building our FastAPI. All right. So first of all, I'm going to import the basic modules here, something like FastAPI depends, HTTP exception, and status as well. And we can import the header as well here. And now we can import the database stuff, which is going to be SQL Alchemy .orm. First of all, we'll get the session. So that's going to be session. And then from the database file, what we're going to get is import session local and the engine of our database. All right. So now from the models, we're going to get the user model. And from auth-utils, what we're going to have is auth-utils import all the functions there, which are create access token and verify token, and also the decode access token as well, and also the hash password function as well. We can also get the decode access token here. All right. So moving forward, what we can get is the Pydantic base model as well. So that's going to be from Pydantic import base model. We do not need the email string here. And also from the Fast API security module, we're going to get something like HTTP bearer. So that will basically be used for declaring a route as an HTTP bearer route. So that will help us to basically uh, allow us to pass in tokens as inputs, the JWT tokens as inputs for basically authenticating our endpoint. All right, so I'll just pass it as fastapi.security. I'm going to import HTTP bearer. And also I'm going to import the HTTP authorized credentials here. All right. So I think that are all the import statements here. And now we can start the coding. And for this, first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to I'm going to basically set the base dot metadata dot create all and the bind is equal to engine. So that basically creates all the database inside our engine. I have not imported base here, so I'm just going to import base here. So the base will be imported from the database file itself. So that's going to be here. And I think that's good. All right. So moving forward, we can now define our FastAPI app, which is simply FastAPI object. And then we can define the security as well, which is going to be HTTP bearer type of security. All right, so now I'm going to define a simple function here, which will fetch us our database. So the get DB function is going to return a database. So that's going to be, first of all, I'm going to have a social session local instance here. And now I'm going to try to yield the database. And finally, we can close the database here. All right. Moving forward, now we can define the schema for our user. So I'm just going to define a schema like user create, because first of all, we're going to create a user inside our table and database. So this is simply going to be username, which is going to be a string, and the password, which is going to be a string as well. All right, moving forward, now what we can do is have a post endpoint here, which is going to be used for signing up. So I'm just going to name it something like slash sign up. And I can start defining this function, this endpoint. So it's going to be defined sign up, and inside this function, we can pass in first of all the user, which is going to be a user create type of schema. And then we can also pass in the database, which is going to be a session of the get DB dependency. So that's going to be depends on get DB. All right. So now moving forward, we can have so we can start the logic processing here. So first of all, I'm going to check if the user exists or not. So I'm just going to write in a query to find out if my user exists in the current database or not. So the query is going to be simply db.query on the user table dot filter user.username is equals to our user object's username and dot first. So if basically it exists, then we can give it an error that the username already exists here. All right. And if we pass this condition, that means the username does not exist in the database. So we can start basically hashing our password. So the hashed password is going to be the hash password, is going to use the hash password function from the auth utils, and we're going to pass the user's password input inside as the parameter. Now what we're going to do is we can simply save our user. So this saved user can be saved with the command of user and then username equals to user.username and hashed password equals to the hashed password. All right, that's perfect. So now I can add this user object inside my database. So that will involve the function of db.addNewUser, and then we can commit it here. Then we can just simply refresh it, and then we can return a message something like a username and the ID of that user as well. All right, perfect. So now we can move forward and we can define the post endpoint for our login system. So that's going to be app.post, and I'm going to pass in the slash login here. All right, so for the login, what I'm going to do here is first of all, I'm going to check if the user exists, if the username exists or not. So first of all, I'm going to define the function, which is going to be define login, and then the user, which is just going to have the same schema as user create. And the DB is the same as the session, which depends on the get DB. All right, perfect. Now we can move forward. So first of all, I'm going to check if the user exists or not already. So that's going to be checked by db user equals to db dot query, and then I'm going to pass the user table inside this, and I'm going to filter all this table with the fact that user dot username is equal to username or not. And if it is equal, then it's great. That means the username already exists and we can proceed forward. But what if it does not exist? That means the credentials are invalid. So I'm going to return an HTTP exception here, which just says invalid credentials. All right, so now we get to the else part, which is basically our user exists in the database. That's perfect. So for this, so basically we need to provide a JWT token as a response in this login endpoint. So basically, whenever a user tries to log in, he can use that JWT token to basically access other protected routes. So this can be used to protect our routes, and each token has an expiry time. So basically, no user can use the same token for infinite amount of time. So that basically enhances the security of our application. All right, so now I'm gonna move forward and I'm gonna use the hashed password here. So for this, it's gonna be db dot user hashed password equals to none, remove hashed password from response, and then I'm gonna create an access token here. So for creating the access token, we can just simply use the access token function here, which is basically this. And for the data, it's gonna be sub. So the sub is basically used for encrypting the data inside of our argument. So you have to pass it in this format itself. So for the sub, it's going to be dbuser.username. And for this username, it will be creating an access token. So once we have the access token created, now we can simply return it using a return statement. So we can return an access token and the token type is bearer. And for this is for the user DB user. All right. And one more thing is in the verification process, we have first of all compared if the user exists or not. And then we have also verified the password using the verify password function of our auth utils file. So this has verified the password of the original password and the hashed password inside our database. All right, once the hashed password is, we can actually remove this line because we do not need to remove that hashed password. And then we can move forward with our next step. So now I'm going to create a sample protected route here. So first of all, let's just test if it works or not. So I'm going to run this using UVcorn, JWT-app, reload, and let's see if uh, it runs successfully or not. So let's just wait for this to load up. One more thing, for importing the crypt context, we need to use the passlib dot context module instead of just passlib. So let's just wait for this to load up now. All right, so I've just imported a wrong function name here. Let me just go there, and it's not verify token. It's actually nothing here. All right, so the application has started up now. So let's just see how it looks like. So yeah, it is available there. I'm just going to go to the UI for a FastAPI backend. And perfect. So we have a UI here. So first of all, I'm going to use the post for sign up endpoint here. So for the sign up endpoint, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to create a user here. So I'm just going to click on try it out. And then for the username, it's going to be user. The password can be something like pass. And then I'll execute this function. All right. So one more thing, guys, that I had modified the one of the fields inside my user table here, which was email before. So I had modified this to username, and that's it. So now we can see that our user has been created here as we have got a response with the code 200, which means it was a success. So we have got a username as user and the ID as one, which is the response we had set in the sign up endpoint. All right, so now I'm going to try to log in. And if the login is successful, I should get a response as a JWT token here. So let's try it out, how it works. Let's me just click on try it out and let's just click on user here and the password was just pass here. So let's see if it works or not. And so yeah, perfect. As you can see, we have gotten access token as a response here, and this token will be used to access the protected routes inside our fast API. And we have got all the details as well, which is hashed password, username, and ID, which are all the correct details for our basically the logic we had processed in here. So that's it. We have learned how we can use access tokens here, and we can generate access tokens using Python JWT. All right, guys, so I'll just show you now how our basic encryption works here. So as you can see, for the hashed password, we have this password right here. So I'll just show you how it changes accordingly with a change in our secret key, which we had basically configured here. So I'll just save my key here, save my hashed password here for now. And now I'll go here. And for the auth utils here, now for the secret key, I'm just going to change this to something like secret key 1234, 124, and let's just let it restart. And for now, I'm just also going to delete this database because I'll just show you how the new secret key works here. So you do not need to delete the database. You can also delete it from some query, but that was more convenient for me because there was just one query inside my database right now. All right. So it has created a new database here, which is users.db here. Perfect. So now I'll just show you how the change in the secret key leads to the change in hashed password, which is basically this here. So let's test it out, and I'll just go here. And all right, so for now, first of all, we need to sign up here. So I'll just click on sign up and I have already clicked on try it out. So I'll just execute this here, user and pass. All right, perfect. So perfect. We have a user created here with the ID one because we had previously deleted the whole database. And now I'll just log in using the same credentials here. Also going to show you how it changes, how it basically returns an error when I give it a wrong password. So yeah, as you can see, it says invalid credentials here. And if I pass the correct credentials here and I'll execute it now. So as you can see, I've got a different response this time. So let me just check in the hashed password with the previous hashed password here. And So yeah, as you can see, these both are different, and that's because of the fact that we had changed our secret key inside our file here, which is auth utils. So that's how secret key basically um, influences your encrypted password. And also it's the encrypted password, I think, cannot be, the access tokens cannot be same anytime, because it also incorporates the time, the current time. So that is why it cannot be same for any two, even two same passwords. So that's how basically the JWT and access token system works. So that's what we have learned. And now in the future videos, we'll learn how we can use the JWT token to basically access a protected route, and also use JWT to hide or protect a route for our fast API. Alright, guys, so that's it for the video, and thanks for watching.